All right. So we are focusing on our neck, pec area, upper pec area, jaw, a little bit of head, and all around face and jaw. We'll need a ball, wet ball-ish, and then maybe something for a little bit of massage if you want a little bit of cream if it's too tacky. So we're going to start in our, like, just kind of releasing all of our sternum and along our clavicle and kind of this anterior neck. So just to kind of show you, clavicle, sternum is in the center. There's like it's called your manubrium at the top. So it's a little notch, and then your clavicle runs out from the side, both sides. So we're just going to essentially run along there. So I'm going to just put a tiny bit of stuff on my fingers, just so I have a little bit of slimy. And then we're just going to start at that sternal notch. So you can just kind of feel that notch, and I have my fingers kind of flat on my skin, and I press in. You're going to keep your chin down to start. You press into that sternum, into that skin, and then pull your fingers down towards your belly button, taking up the slack. Hold there, and then slowly let yourself look up towards the ceiling. And you can feel the stretch all the way up into that jaw usually. Maybe just do a couple there. You bring your head back down. You always have the option to use the ball as your grippy thing if you want. If your fingers get tired, you have to have a tacky ball, like something that has a little bit of grip to it. So maybe just a couple of those. You can also experiment with turning your head, right? So you start to look up. Maybe you rotate one direction, then the other. Maybe one more in the center, and then we'll work off to the sides. So you have this. So then let's just slowly go off to the right. So we're going to just follow the clavicle. So I pretty much sink my fingers in on the clavicle, press in, and then as you slide your fingers down, they drop just below the clavicle. Kind of hold there. And then looking up, and then probably rotate away. So rotate to the left. Oh, so good. You have this muscle that goes all the way, called your platysma, that's just like all the way from just about jawline and comes all the way down and attaches down into the front of your chest. And if you think about the amount of time that we spend looking forward and down, how tight all of these anterior structures get. And so just releasing all of this stuff, especially if you have any jaw problems, TMJ, headaches, like all of this just starts to pull on all of the structures of your neck. So you're just working your way every inch or so out further along that clavicle. Maybe side bending, maybe rotating. Oh. Feel the pull all the way up into kind of your jaw. And we'll get into structures a little bit higher up in just a second, but we're going to kind of release from the base, knowing that all of these muscles from like your upper trapezius and all this stuff and all the front of your chest come up and essentially attach up into your head. So we really start to kind of untack things from further down. So I'm taking a break on my fingers and I'm using the ball a little bit. We'll do maybe another 30 seconds or so on this right side. Just breathing. And this is really much more about shearing of those fascial layers. So if you think about two sheets sitting on top of each other and you're sort of compressing, but then you're sliding those sheets opposite each other. So we're not just like pushing on one spot, we're actually like pulling. So your hands or the ball are pulling in one direction, and then you're using your range of motion to pull in another direction. So then go ahead and switch over to that left side. So you just can start back in the center. Pulling, so you kind of push into the skin, pull down, take up the slack, and then start to lift your head. Maybe you rotate away, maybe you side bend. Just let yourself experiment. And the rules for all of this rolling and releasing is always that you always want to be able to breathe into it and relax into it. So it should never be so intense that you're like bracing and holding your breath. If it is, ease up a little bit, right? You're in control. So you can just go a little, don't push as hard. Don't move as far, just kind of back off. And then the second rule that I have is that it should always, even if it's intense, it should start to lessen in intensity as you're holding it. So just working your way out along that left clavicle, breathing. You can have a lot of nervy stuff in here. So your cervical spine, right, is the neck portion of your spine. And then all of your nerve roots exit out each side, and then they run down into your upper extremities, but they really run right in this groove underneath your clavicle. And then they go right in, some of your nerves and stuff go in between your clavicle and your first rib. So they're actually like pinned in between those two things. So when all these structures get tight and your ribs get elevated, it can actually start to pinch on those structures in between your clavicle and your ribs. So it's just really good to get some release to all this stuff. So take maybe another minute or so over here, just kind of working your way. Maybe you check in all the way towards that far end of your clavicle. We're not necessarily targeting our pec, but you could certainly play with range of motion of your arm. That changes things. You could do both, right? Like reach your arm back and turn your head, look up. So you're just looking to kind of work that fascial web. Lovely. Take a couple of nice breaths. And then we're going to do a little bit under your jaw. So this can feel kind of strange at first, but essentially all of this line right along your jaw, even to the center. So I like to have just a tiny bit of stuff on my finger so it's not so, so it's a little bit slimier. And then I'm just using my thumb, and I'm just going to slowly kind of press in underneath my chin, and then just slowly work my way out along one jaw line and wherever your head wants to be. And again, like I said, it can be kind of intense, so just go gently. So I'm just kind of all along this jawline. And as you get to the end, maybe you kind of cruise up towards your ear. And we're going to get into all these side muscles when we lay down. But you can go from the chin out, you can go from closer to your ear and work your way back in. Like I said, you can be either, chin down, you can stretch your head up towards the ceiling. And just kind of check in with both sides. And if it's really sticky, like if your fingers aren't really sliding, get a little something, whether it's like a tiny bit of lotion or tiny bit of oil, massage cream, CBD, arnica, tiger balm, whatever. So there's just a little bit of glide. And again, you could use the ball, that grippy. You're just looking to get that shearing. And again, just gently. It doesn't take much. This area is, you know, can be kind of intense, but we don't ever really get into this zone. And I think we hold so much tension here in our jaw, so much more than we realize. And then if it's, I always encourage people to kind of follow the tension, right? So if you're sort of feeling like you're wanting to go down lower, by all means, you have these muscles in the front. I'm trying to find a better picture for you. Called your scalenes in the front of your neck. And it can be, sorry, keep releasing. I don't encourage people to roll on the ball. No, here's, okay, these two. So from the side, right, you've got your big muscle called your sternocleidomastoid. That's the one you can sometimes see, like if you, well, whatever, you get the idea. It runs from the side of your ear and your jaw down to that notch that we were on before. So you've got two of them, big ones in the front. And then you've got all of these other littler guys. Here you can see some of them. This is your sternocleidomastoid coming up. And then you've got all these littler, they're called your scalenes, kind of on the sides. But the other thing to take note of, right, is that you have a whole bunch of arteries and veins and nerves. So this is why I don't have people like lay on the ball and roll on your anterior neck, right? But all of this, like, you know, kind of more shearing type release is fine. So you just have to kind of get in here. It's a little just more with your hands. Maybe, like I said, maybe you use the ball, but you're not really pushing in. You're just sort of gliding down this tissue. Breathing. Could add your range of motion. And you can play with whether you're, I sometimes really like to put the muscles on slack. So the side that I'm working on, I actually side bend towards that side rather than having them on stretch. I feel like I can sometimes get in there a little bit better. Let's just take a couple more, maybe 30 more seconds wherever you haven't explored anywhere under that chin, along that jawline. And we're going to get, you know, all into our jaw and everything. So don't worry if you were being drawn up there. We're kind of just getting this jawline and then down anterior neck. And then we're going to move into the back and up and around. So a couple more breaths. And then we're actually going to need your foam roller and the ball still when we go down to the floor. And just so you can see it, we're going to get a little bit of our upper trap because this connects right up in here. So we're going to start in there, and then we're going to get all of this side muscles of our neck. We're not going to roll on your spine, so you're never right on your spine. We're going to be just off to the side. And then because we're going to go right into it while you're down there, I want to just show you kind of in the back of your head where we're going. So we're going to cruise all the way up to this ridge, your suboccipital ridge. And then you even have this muscle up higher. So we're going to kind of get all the way up onto our head. We're going to work into our temporalis muscle. So we're going to get all this release all up into your head. And I can put that up there again in a second. But go ahead, grab your foam roller. You're going to come down onto the floor. And let's just do a quick pass of our upper back. So all of these things, you know, it's all connected. So we're just going to do, you're going to lean against the roller right about mid to upper back. Your butt's on the ground, your feet planted on the floor, hands are interlaced behind your head. And you're just going to lift your butt up off the floor a little bit and just roll through your upper back. So just let yourself move back and forth. Breathing. Maybe you side bend a little bit and get underneath one shoulder blade more. You could certainly do a little bit of pausing and let yourself extend back over the roller, kind of opening up through your chest. And open up into that, all that tissue we just released right in the front of your neck. Again, maybe rolling more. So just take another minute or so. And I don't like to go too low on your back, right? So some people are tempted to like roll way out here and get their low back. That's not the way that I like to get the low back. So let's stick to your upper back in this position. And then you're going to roll all the way down and lay on the roller like a pillow. And you can hold on to it with your hands if it feels like it might slip out from under your head. And then you're just going to take your head side to side like you're saying no. So just releasing those suboccipitals with the roller, right? So this is sort of the more broad stroke release. And then we're going to get in deeper with the ball. So then come to center, back to neutral with your head. We're just going to add a little bit of chin tucks. So here you're just going to tuck your chin and lengthen the back of your neck a little bit and then relax. Do a couple more here. Tuck chin, relax. And then we're going to add rotation. You're going to rotate your head a couple inches to the right and then little chin tuck. Maybe do a couple there. And then you rotate a little further and then a couple chin tucks. And then a little further. So you're kind of working your way all along that occipital ridge. And then when you get all the way to the end, you come back to center, same thing, a little bit to the left, couple chin tucks, a little further. And just work your way out. And then maybe just take a couple last rotations back and forth. And then you're going to find your ball. Go ahead and push the roller aside. And we're going to take this ball. Let's start on the left side. And you're going to put it right into that upper trapezius. So right where your neck meets your shoulder, it's kind of tucked underneath you just a little bit, but you're still at the top of that shoulder. And just take a couple of breaths. And let's do a couple little rotations of your head here. Just from side to side. And then let's take a couple ranges of motion with that left arm. You're going to take that arm up overhead and down. Never pushing into any sharp pain, right? So if your shoulder's pinchy at all, then just do what you can. Go maybe only up to the ceiling. And then the last thing we're going to do is a couple times where you push into your feet. So you push into your feet and the ball gets pressed down into your shoulder. And then you relax out of it. And again, push and relax. And then we're just going to slowly work your way up the side of your neck. So you're not laying on the ball in the center, right? It's not on your spine. It's just off to the side. And you can just move it up a little. And then you work with some of those ranges of motion, right? Maybe you rotate your head to the left towards that ball. Maybe you do some little chin tucks. You're breathing. So we sort of worked that front side of the body and now or the neck, and now we're kind of getting more into this back and side tissue. So just let yourself slowly work your way. And if it ever feels, and I guess depending on what ball you have too, the grippier ones will stay put a little bit more, but if the ball feels slippery and like it's going to fall out to the side, like I'm taking my left hand up and kind of holding it in place. And always just go easy. Sometimes it can feel really good, like if you're releasing something that really feels tight and like it needs releasing and you feel like you want to dig in there. But just really have a lot of respect for this type of release, right? It's really powerful, especially in this area. You can get sore from this kind of work. So until you really have a good sense of how your body responds to this kind of work, just go easy, especially if you have not done any kind of release in this area in a really long time. So maybe just aim more for the gentle side. And you're going to get all the way up towards that suboccipital ridge, right? That base of your skull. And I'm just sort of taking my head gently in and out of rotation. I'm just sort of rotating into the ball and then coming out. You can rotate, you can just hold. Breathing. Maybe those little chin tucks. So with this pass, let's kind of come just all the way up to kind of that groove at the base of your neck, like right where it meets your skull. We're not actually going to go up onto your head just quite yet. We will, but we're going to get both sides of our neck released first. But you can really kind of start to get, especially up towards the top and out closer almost to your ear, you get into the back of that sternocleidomastoid. Can be really good. So let's spend maybe another minute or so on this side. Just breathing. A lot of tension, headaches, a lot of migraine stuff comes from this area. It'd be really great to just get the blood flowing and open up this tissue. And then when you're ready, we're going to switch to that right side. So same thing, we're starting back in that upper trapezius area, right? So you just get that ball kind of wedged underneath where your neck meets your shoulder. Maybe you take a couple breaths. Just let the ball sink in. And you can always feel free to prop however you need to support yourself. Like if your head feels like it's not, like it's dangling too much into extension, you can either put your hand underneath it, you could put a towel or a pillow. Like just let yourself be comfortable. This is about releasing things. So I don't want you holding and bracing and tensing anywhere else. So if there's something you need to do to make yourself comfortable, do it. And then you're maybe going to take a couple rotations of your head. And then you can play with that right arm. You take that right arm up overhead. And then maybe you do a couple pushes of those through your feet, right? Where you press your body up towards your head, kind of feeling that ball press into your upper trapezius. And then as you're ready, you just do the same thing we did on the other side, which is to slowly work your way up the side of your neck. And maybe you're rotating into the ball. Maybe you're doing some chin tucks. Maybe you're experimenting with some side bending. Just let yourself be guided by what you feel. Again, you should always be able to breathe and relax into it. If you can't, it's too much and you need to back off. And there's lots of ways to back off of this, right? You can, literally just sort of don't push as hard, move the ball out a little bit. You can use a softer ball and use a smaller ball. You could do this against the wall. It's going to be a little bit less intense because it's a little bit less against gravity. There's lots of ways to kind of change the intensity until your body really gets used to it, or if you're having a particularly flared up moment, right? If you've kind of thrown your neck out or something is really in spasm, sometimes you just need to go really, really gently and just get a little bit of blood flow. So just really listening to your body, slowly working your way up, whole side of that neck. Breathing. And there's, I talk a lot about, excuse me, doing versus receiving, right? So sometimes when we're rolling, we get in this space of wanting to really like cram the ball in there, push and dig. And sometimes that's appropriate, but you also really want to balance that out with the receiving part of it, where it's just you really intentionally relaxing your tissue and letting the ball melt into it so that you're not bracing against it and firing those muscles. So you can sort of go back and forth, right? You could kind of push a little, move a little, and then maybe you find a spot and then you just melt into it. So just slowly, again, working all the way up to that base of your skull. So we're kind of right in those suboccipitals. We're not up on the ridge yet of where it gets like really bony at the back of your head. You're just right where they meet. And you're working all along. And like I said on the other side, maybe getting all the way out, almost to like the back of that ear, below your ear, but getting over on the side where you can really kind of feel into that muscle that attaches up into your jaw. Breathing. And every so often, kind of expand your awareness out a little bit and check in with other parts of your body, right? Are you tensing your jaw? Are you clenching your hands? Are your feet really tense? Like, see if you can't just release some of the tension that you might be holding elsewhere. Take maybe another minute or so on this side. Breathing. I'm going to show you where we're going to go now. So looking from the side, so we kind of came all the way up to about here. It's where the ridge of your skull is. And then we're actually going to come up onto kind of like the back lower part of your skull, right? It's kind of where these, the muscle at the back of your head. And then we're going to kind of rotate from there and move around each side, almost to like the back of our ear. So it feels a little bit strange at first. So same thing, you're on your back, and we're going to use the ball. And so I have the ball in my right hand, and I have my head supported a little bit with my left hand. So I'm just sort of holding the back of my head. And then right in the center, so you can kind of feel that like notch at the base of your skull where it kind of becomes soft tissue. And then you're going to come up from there, maybe like an inch. So you're really solidly on the back of your skull. And then you're just going to kind of maybe do a little bit of chin tucking here and just maybe move around a little bit. And then we're going to slowly work our way off to the side. So I'm turning my head to the right. So I'm sort of holding the ball in place with my right hand, giving my head a little bit of support with the left. And then you're just working your way out along that ridge. So you kind of can work I don't know. I mean, there really are no rules. You can go wherever you feel drawn, but I'd say I'm working in like a band that's about three, 3 to 4 inches wide. So I'm kind of moving the ball up a little bit and getting a little bit more on the back of my head. And then I come down a little and then I turn my head. And you'll just sort of find like really crazy, odd, surprising tight spots. And maybe you just breathe there for a second. So I feel, especially as I turn my head and I get almost closer to the back of my ear and off of that, that there's some really surprisingly tender zones right there. Just slowly work. And again, lots of ways to change it and modify it, right? You could use a softer ball. You could put a layer, if you don't have a softer ball, you could put a layer, maybe like a towel, a little bit of a folded up towel. You could support more with your left hand to take some of the weight off. Just gonna move around. Kind of that whole back and sides of your skull, essentially. And then I'm starting to work. I went back to the center. I'm starting to work into my left side. But we've got another few minutes for sure in all this area. So just take your time. I encourage everyone to always at least check in with all the areas and all the sides, but then certainly spend your time where you need to. Like if you check in with both sides, but it was really the right that felt much more tender or intense, then go back to that. But you have to check in. Sometimes there's some sneaky tight zones. Working your way. Again, all the way out, almost to back behind your ear. There's a lot happening in all these areas. So let's give this whole zone maybe another minute or so, both sides. So checking in, spending your time where you need to. Always breathing. And then we're going to work into our face as we work our way down towards our jaw. So you can do this in sitting, you can do this lying down. With my ball. And you can use your fingers or you can use the ball. If you have a wit ball and it has the waffly patterns, I would encourage you to use the flat part just so you don't get any lovely little waffle marks on your face. Added bonus. And again, maybe you want a little bit of stuff on your fingers. So you have a muscle that literally comes down from the top of your head too and attaches. So we can just start in our forehead a little bit, right? So I sometimes like to just start right at the inside bridge of your nose and just gently, right? And you're just looking for that shearing, that slow pressure and glide. And you're just going to work your way up and then start to go out. I'm putting a little more stuff on my fingers. So it's nice to not have it be too slimy because you want that grip, right? You really get that fascial release. And we're just going to work this whole forehead. And again, there's no, besides like poking your eyes out or anything, there's no rules. As long as you're just sort of let yourself be guided by what you feel, there's muscles everywhere, right? I mean, we have muscles that control every part of our face, our eyebrows and our eyes and, our frown, our smile. And so all of this has stuff going on. So you can just let yourself kind of be guided. Think about the fascia in a three-dimensional way, right? So you might find the restriction is not ever going to just be in one direction, right? So you might be going, up and out, and that feels pretty good, but then you switch and you're pulling down and in, and you're like, holy cow, that feels really tight. And so you just go with it. The idea is you look for the restriction and then you just slowly lean into it, right? And if you are more comfortable to lay down now that you know that what we're doing, whatever position can kind of get you the most relaxed and into this, you can start working out into those temples. You can really get around like the bridge of your nose, up around the inside part of that eye socket can feel really good. Along those eyebrows. And as far as you want to go up, like, if you're feeling drawn as you get up towards your hairline to really get into that frontalis muscle that's up in the top of your scalp, you can just start to work. I think at the last class I did, I was having people actually grab your hair at the root and really just kind of lift, and you can go in different directions. Can feel kind of good. Just let yourself start to explore. And then as you want to, and again, like I said, if your fingers get tired, you can certainly use a ball. I would not, as long as you're gliding, you're not really going to get a whole lot of waffly patterns. But again, I would use the circly bit. But any kind of ball, softer ball, like me, just looking for something to kind of grab hold and release that fascial tissue. Your sinuses are up here, right? So if you have a sinus headache, if you have sinus pressure, I mean, this can be sometimes crazy tender if you have something happening in your sinuses. So just, Know that, appreciate that. Also down underneath your eyes, like off to the sides of your nose. So just doing some gentle stuff here. And then we're slowly going to work into our jaw, in and around our jaw. So just keep going, but I'm just going to show you kind of what is happening around. So we have our temporalis muscle that we worked in a little bit when we were in sideline, right? We kind of got out. But certainly, if you're feeling like you want to explore all the way back above your ear and into this muscle, like all the way up in here, maybe check in there. And then just so you have a picture, this is your masseter. This is your really big, like you can feel it if you put your fingers on the edge of your jaw and you clench your teeth. So we can start to get down into there where it attaches into your jaw. And really all along these cheekbones, right? So you're just going to start to explore all the way down around your cheekbone, above it, around your ear, down. So we're going to do all this external stuff. And I'm going to show you if you want to try any internal, and I'll show you a video in a second of kind of where those internal pterygoid muscles are. But you can do a lot of good stuff from the outside. So again, just like gentle pressure, gentle glide, you can hold it in place. And then you can start to move. You can move your jaw, right? You can open your jaw, you can close it, you can kind of clench your teeth for a second, you can relax it. And you're just searching for the places, right? Sometimes you just move along and it feels pretty okay. And then you'll get on one spot and you're like, holy cow, it's either really tender, maybe you need to ease up a little bit, or it's just tight. Like you just feel like kind of a nodule. It's almost like a really, I mean, you know what a tense muscle feels like, right? So just feels kind of ropey and thicker. And so you're just, and again, the same thing we were talking about in the forehead. It's not just one direction, right? Check in with all of them. While the muscle fibers run in a certain direction, the fascial tissue that surrounds it is running in all directions. So when you're kind of getting into that fascial tissue a little bit more, it can be very different how it needs to be released. So you're just sort of looking for the pull. Just really letting yourself explore all those places. I have my earbuds in, so I'm not going to really get into my ear, but it can feel really good to get kind of into your ear. You almost like put, if you can pull on your earlobes, you can kind of tuck your finger right in the inside of that front part of your ear and pull forward. You can just set your thumb in there and maybe pull down. Like it can feel really good. Yeah, I'll try to show you. I'll take one out. So if you just put your finger in there and you can kind of check in different directions. And it's just doing like some gentle release in here. You can get right behind your ear all along that ridge. And then that goes right down into that sternocleidomastoid, right? That big muscle. So you can get, and then all the way up. So that attaches into your mastoid process, which is your jaw hinge, right? So it's a big player in our tightness of our jaw. And your jaw, you're literally your temporomandibular joint, like your jaw is this separate piece, this separate bone, right? And I'll show you in a second. And at the joint where it hinges, it literally has a disc. It's like a proper joint, synovial fluid and ligaments and a disc in between, and you can actually have like a dislocation of that disc and very intense, like, if you've had dental work where your mouth is cranked open for a really long time, like you can have some pretty crazy stuff happening in your jaw. So this is it's a big zone. So while you're releasing, I'll go ahead and show you this video so you can see it, because it's kind of cool. So this is shows your temporalis muscle up here, your masseter, and kind of shows you how your jaw moves. It slides, it like opens and then it slides forward. And then these guys inside are your pterygoid muscles. So we'll get in there in a second if you want to explore the internal at all. And certainly if you have jaw stuff going on, whether you explore this on your own or whether you go to somebody that does internal work, but it's important to release these guys. But it's kind of hard to get a concept of where they are. So I think this video kind of can help to show you, where they live. And then the other thing, like if your hands are clean and or gloves or whatever, but can also be nice to do inside outside. So like if both your teeth go right to the back of your teeth, yeah, go wash your hands. So I like to actually use my thumb on the opposite side. It's hard for me to talk and do this at the same time, but if you essentially just put that thumb in there, and you're just going to feel like if you kind of trace to the back of your cheek, it starts to feel hard. And you can sort of play with where your jaw is in space, right? So you can sort of open a little bit further, close it up a little bit. And you're just kind of exploring the whole length of that muscle. And then sometimes I will go, because the masseter, you could get into the inside and the outside of the masseter too. So I kind of sometimes this can be really intense. Pinch the inside outside gently. I had some dental work done and my mouth was so far open and they were way back in this furthest back tooth. And my jaw was so painful after that for weeks. And doing all of this release was really helpful. Just getting in, like I had so much pain, like kind of around my cheekbone, and like it was radiating down into this lower jaw. It was really tender. It was tender, like to the touch over the joint. And it was really, just really interesting how it felt like a sprain. It literally felt like an ankle sprain of my jaw. It just was really, really interesting. But I also think the more that you can sort of get in touch with these tissues, just like everywhere in our body, how I talk about interoception, right? That internal sense. I think the same thing applies in this tissue. Like if you can start to really get in touch with this a little bit more, I think we become more aware when we're clenching throughout the day, like when we're holding tension in your jaw. If you're really disconnected from this, you're just oblivious to the fact that you're sitting there tense and, clenched up in this space. So I think the more you can kind of release into this tissue and wake it up to that sense, then you can start to really pay attention more to when you're clenching. And just always pay attention. I always try to tell people, you're paying attention to where things might be referring. So, like if you are a headache person and you get headaches a lot and you start to push somewhere, in your jaw or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's eliciting my headache. I always think of that as like a really good thing. It means you're onto something, right? So there's a connection there, in some way, whether it's neural or fascial. So, you know, using your rules about you should always be able to breathe into it and it should lessen in intensity as you hang out there. But hang out there if you can. So we'll take maybe another couple of minutes checking in with both sides, whether it's inside, outside. The dentist also gave my husband this, it's called like a gum massager. It's like this little picker thing that you're just supposed to like, so he just sits there watching TV and just like goes around. And so like the blood flow thing is so crucial, right? Like whether we're doing this, or you're like massaging your gums. I mean, I just think all of it needs, my philosophy is just circulation is king, right? Like we're looking for blood flow, we're looking for circulation. So any kind of movement or release. And so much of what we got into underneath our jaw and in this area is like the base of your tongue, right? So you get all of these crazy, these crazy things happening when you're down in this zone that are all connected, to what's happening inside your mouth. So take a last couple of breaths. Maybe let's just do a tiny bit of range of motion. Maybe we're going to sit up nice and tall. Drop your chin to your chest. And maybe looking up towards the ceiling. Back to neutral. Looking over your right shoulder. And then your left. And then back to neutral, dropping right ear to right shoulder. And then left ear, left shoulder. And then let's just come into all fours for a second and do a couple cat-cows just to kind of wake muscles up a little bit and to get our deep neck flexors engaged. So you're going to be in your all fours position, hands underneath your shoulders, knees under your hips. And just a couple really gentle cat-cows. So taking an inhale, on the exhale, belly pulls in, pressing everything up towards the ceiling, rounding. Inhale, exhale, coming down into extension. Again, one more big breath each direction. You can certainly let yourself add a little bit of rotation or side bending if that feels good. Down into extension last time. And then I want you to come to neutral. So you're flat like a table. And then you're going to Lengthen the back of your neck and tuck your chin. So it's almost like you're pulling your chin up towards the ceiling, right? But the back of your head is nice and long, pressed up in between your shoulder blades. Trying to keep your chin tucked, you're just going to let your head rotate. So you're going to rotate to the right, keeping that chin gently tucked. It's not super intense, right? And then back through the center, keeping that chin tucked, back of your neck is long. We're not looking to tense things up. We're just waking up the muscles a little bit. You rotate left. One more each direction. Chin tucking gently. Rotate right. Back to center and left. And then you can come out of it. So always good to sort of move things around, wake up the muscles after something like this. And again, everybody's different, and you have to sort of start to experiment with how your body responds to this type of work. So encourage people to go easy the first time and then, experiment. Always drink a lot of extra water when you're done with these sorts of things. Epsom salt baths, flush everything out. Good work.